Shuttle descended through clouds of orange dust as Cole pressed her face against the viewport. Below her stretched the ruins of Prime, a dead world covered in the bones of cities that had died before Earth even existed. She had studied images of the place for years, but seeing it with her own eyes made her heart beat faster. A specialist in alien languages, she had spent 12 years learning to read the writing systems of 17 different species. When the Galactic Archaeological Coalition had finally accepted a human onto their research team, she had applied immediately. Now she was here, one of the first humans to walk among ruins that predated her entire species by millions of years. She landed on a platform carved from black stone. When the doors opened, stepped out in thin air that smelled like copper and old paper. A tall figure waited for her at the edge of the platform. He had blue-gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes that reflected light like mirrors. This was the lead archaeologist of the Coalition team and one of the most respected scholars in 12-star system. He did not look how he'd see her. Cole said, his voice was flat and cold. I must be honest with you. I posed your assignment to the project. Humans are a young species. Your civilization has existed for mere thousands of years. The builders were ancient when the first stars were still young. I failed to see what perspective you could offer. Her expression calm. She had expected the reaction. Humans had only been part of galactic society for 30 years. Many older species still viewed them as children playing in the world of adults. Understand your concerns, said. I am here to learn and to help whoever I can, nothing more. To her for a long moment. Then he turned and walked toward a massive doorway carved into the mountainside. Come then, I will show you what we have found. Perhaps you will understand why I believe this mystery is beyond human comprehension. Through corridors of smooth black stone, strange symbols covered every surface, carved so deeply into the walls that could fit her entire hand inside the grooves. The symbols were beautiful in a way she could not explain. They seemed to pull at something deep in her mind, as if she had seen them before in a dream. The other members of the research team, a group of scientists argued over a holographic display of symbol patterns. A squad of soldiers stood guard at an intersection, their weapons ready for threats that had not existed for millions of years. Everyone glanced at with curiosity or suspicion. She was the only human on the world. Dr. Grant met them at the entrance to the main research area. He was a tall man with gray hair and a scar across his chin. He served as security officer for the small human contingent assigned to support the Coalition mission. Cole, Lee said with a warm smile. Welcome to, I hope the trip was not too rough. It was fine, said. Thank you, Commander. A sound of impatience. If you are finished with greetings, there is work to be done. Follow me. Descended deeper into the ruins. The air grew colder with each step. Finally, they emerged into a chamber so vast they could not see the ceiling. The walls stretched upward in darkness, and every inch of them was covered with the strange symbols she had seen in the corridor. Research from various species worked throughout the chamber. Equipment hummed and lights flashed as they scanned and photographed the inscription. At the center of the room stood a raised platform where it took his position. Chin announced. His voice echoed through the chamber. We have a new team member, Dr. Cole from Earth. She's a linguist. The way he said the word made it sound like an insult. Perhaps fresh eyes will see what we have missed. Or the condescension in his tone. She walked slowly along the nearest wall, studying the symbols that covered it. Something about them nagged at her mind. They were familiar in a way she could not quite identify. 3 years we have studied these inscriptions, continued. We have compared them to every known writing system in our databases. We have run them through translation algorithms designed by the greatest minds in the galaxy. We have found nothing. These symbols match no language that has ever existed. Scientist named Doctor spoke up. Perhaps they are not language at all. They could be mathematical formulas or artistic expression. It is possible, agreed. But the pattern suggests linguistic structure. There is repetition and variation consistent with written communication. We simply cannot determine what it means. You walking along the wall. Her eyes moved from symbol to symbol and the nagging feeling in her mind grew stronger. She had seen these shapes before. She was certain of it. But where? They predated humanity by millions of years. How could she possibly recognize them? She stopped. Her breath caught in her throat. She was staring at a symbol carved deep into the black stone. It was a symbol shape, 2 diagonal lines meeting at a point with a horizontal line across the middle. It was the letter A. Dizzy. She looked at the next symbol. 2 vertical lines with a curved shape connecting them at the top and middle. The letter B, but it was reversed, mirror image from how she would normally write it. Heart pounded as she walked faster along the wall. C, D, E, F, all of them backwards. All of them carved in stone that had existed since before her planet was formed. To Cole, Leo had noticed her strange behavior. Is everything all right? Not answer. She could not answer. She was looking at the entire alphabet of her native language, written in reverse on the walls of an alien ruin millions of years old. It was impossible. It made no sense. And yet there it was, clear as the letters in a children's book. Turned to face, the archaeologist was watching her with obvious annoyance. The private access to the chamber said, her voice was steady despite the chaos in her mind. Tonight, for several hours. Narrowed his mirrored eyes. Why? To verify something before I speak about it, please. If I am wrong, no one needs to know I made a fool of myself. If I am right, then everything changes. Considered her request for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. Very well, you have until morning. Do not touch anything without authorization. Then turned back to the wall. She stared at the reversed letters that should not exist, and she wondered if she was losing her mind or if she had just made the greatest discovery in human history. Alone through the long night, she photographed every symbol on the walls with her personal scanner. She compared them to the standard Latin alphabet stored in her database. She checked and rechecked her findings until her eyes burned from staring at her display screen. There was no mistake. The symbols on the walls of were the 26 letters of the English alphabet, each one written in mirror image. Mixed among them were numbers from 0 to 9, also reversed. Punctuation marks appeared as well. Periods, commas, question marks, all of them backwards, all of them carved in stone that was older than the sun that warmed her home planet. Morning had translated the first second of text. Her hands trembled as she read the words she had uncovered. The message was simple and clear, written in a language she had learned as a child, but its implications were staggering. Found in his quarters aboard the orbital research station, that was reviewing data from the previous day when requested entry. He looked up with obvious irritation when she stepped through the door. Dr. Cole, I trust your night was productive. Was said. She placed her scanner on his desk and activated the display. I know what the symbols mean. I know why you could not translate them. Leaning forward slowly, despite his skepticism, curiosity flickered in his mirrored eyes. Explain. Symbols are letters and alphabet, but not just any alphabet. Took a deep breath. They are the letters of my native language, the Latin alphabet used by humans on Earth. Every symbol on those walls corresponds to a letter or number that human children learn in their first years of schooling. They stared at her in silence for several seconds. Then he made a sound that might have been laughter. That is absurd. Predates your species by millions of years. How could human writing appear on these walls? Not know, admitted. But I am certain of what I found. Look. She pointed to the display, showing a side-by-side comparison of the symbols in standard Earth letters. Each symbol is a mirror image of its corresponding letter. A is A reversed, B is B reversed. The pattern holds for the entire alphabet. The comparison with growing intensity. His 4 hands moved across his own console, pulling up the original scans from the chamber. He overlaid its analysis onto the colliding data. For a long time, he said nothing. This cannot be, he finally whispered. This challenges everything we understand about the development of intelligent species. No, said. That is why I needed to be certain before I spoke. I have all begun translating the actual message on the walls. Do you want to hear it? Nod slowly. From her scanner. Children of our design. We have waited long for you to find the place. Know that you are not alone. Know that you were never alone. What you call instinct, we call inheritance. What you call inspiration, we call memory. The shapes you used to speak across time and distance were our first gift to you. Chamber fell silent, sat motionless, his mirrored eyes fixed on the display screen. There's more, said, much more, but I need help to translate it all, and I need the coalition to know what we have found. In hours, word had spread throughout the research team, stood before the assembled scientists in the main conference room of the orbital station. Representatives from 8 different species watched her, with expressions ranging from fascination to hostility. The language specialist examines findings with obvious interest. The correlation is remarkable, she said. If this is genuine, it suggests a connection between human development and the civilization that we never suspected. If it is genuine, growled High Arbiter. The leader of the Coalition Council was a massive figure covered in armor plates. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. I find it far more likely that the humans have planted this evidence to elevate their status among us. Her face grew hot with anger, but she kept her voice calm. With respect, High Arbiter, how will we plant evidence in stone that has been dated to millions of years before our species existed? How will we carve symbols so deep into walls that your own scientists have as untouched since the original builders departed? A dismissive gesture. Humans are clever, perhaps too clever. Your species has been part of galactic society for only 30 years. You have much to gain from a discovery that links you to the ancient. Van stepped forward. She commanded the human ship Horizon, which had transported, and the other human team members too. She was a small one with steel gray hair and eyes that could freeze fire. Arbiter said, I must object to the accusation. Dr. Cole is a respected scientist with an impeccable record. She has no motive to fabricate evidence, and she certainly lacks the ability to alter million-year-old stone carvings. She did not alter them, replied. Perhaps she simply sees what she wants to see. Human pattern recognition is notoriously unreliable. From his seat, everyone in the room turned to look at him. As lead archaeologist, his opinion carried enormous weight. Independently, Dr. Cole's analysis said, the correlation between the symbols and the human alphabet is exact. I do not understand how this is possible, but I cannot deny what the evidence shows. Dr. Cole has done legitimate work. Her findings deserve serious consideration. Spread through the assembled scientists, felt a wave of gratitude toward the who had dismissed her so coldly just 1 day ago. Armored face twisted with displeasure. Very well. Continue your translation work, Dr. Cole, but know that I will be watching closely for any sign of deception. I expect nothing less, High Arbiter. The truth will speak for itself. Knight returned to the chamber with at her side. They worked together in silence, translating line after line of the ancient text. With each new section they uncovered, the mystery deepened. The message spoke of seeds planted across the galaxy, of patterns encoded in the building blocks of life itself, of children destined to find each other across the vast emptiness of space. Somewhere in the depths of that ancient chamber, hidden beneath the carved symbols that connected humanity to the stars, something was waiting to be found. Weeks passed, and worked every day in the inscription chamber, translating section after section of the ancient text. The message grew clearer with each passing day, and its implications grew more staggering. I arrived on the orbital station during the 2nd week. He was a young engineer from the Horizon, assigned to assist with technical analysis of the chamber. He had brown hair that never stayed flat and a smile that appeared even in the most serious situation. Let me understand this, said as he set up his scanning equipment. The aliens who built the place wrote their messages using the human alphabet, but they existed millions of years before humans evolved. That is correct, said. You do not think that is completely insane? Well, smiled. I think about little else, but the evidence is clear. The question is not whether the connection exists. The question is why. Found the answer buried in the deep section of the chamber. Translated the passage 3 times before he believed what she was reading. Then she called an emergency meeting of the Coalition Council. Arbiter sat at the head of the long table. His armored body radiated hostility as took her position before the assembled representatives. Stood beside her, his 4 arms folded across his chest in a posture of support. For gathering on short notice, began. We have completed a significant portion of the translation. What we have found changes everything we thought we knew about the origin of intelligent life in the galaxy. Activated the display behind her. Text appeared on the screen, translated from the ancient symbols into standard galactic script. Builders have called themselves the Seers, said. According to their own account, they were the first intelligent species to evolve in the galaxy. They arose billions of years ago, long before most of the stars we see today even existed. They spread across the galaxy and found it empty of other minds. They were alone. Arnold spread through the chamber, continued. It was decided to change this. They developed the technology to seed life across the galaxy. They visited millions of worlds and planted the building blocks of intelligent species. But they did more than just plant life. They encode patterns into the genetic structure of every species they created. Basic templates for thought, for communication, for the fundamental processes of civilization. Leaned forward with intense interest. Are you saying that our capacity for language was designed by these Seers? That said, the Seers encode 6 symbols into the genetic memory of every species they created. These symbols would emerge naturally as each species developed writing. Different worlds would produce different variations, but the core patterns would remain the same. The alphabet I recognized is not human in origin. It is a Seer template that humans inherited along with every other intelligent species in the galaxy. Hans fell over the chamber. Ian seemed too stunned to object. Next, we have found correlations with other writing systems as well. The script shares structural elements with the Seer alphabet, so does text and marking language. The variations are significant, but the underlying patterns are unmistakable. This means, said, that every intelligent species in the galaxy shares a common origin. We are not separate branches of evolution that happen to develop similar traits. We are all children of the same ancient parents. We are family. Chamber erupted in noise. Scientists argued with each other. Religious representatives called out objection, pounded the table with his massive fist. He roared. When the room fell silent, he fixed his gaze on. This is a convenient theory, Dr. Cole. It places humanity on equal footing with species far older and more advanced. It erases the natural hierarchy that has maintained galactic peace for. It's not a theory, replied calmly. It is what the evidence shows. The seers left the message specifically so their children would find it and understand their shared heritage. Moore said. He had been silent during the presentation, but now he stepped forward with his scanner in hand. I have been analyzing the physical structure of the chamber. Beneath the carved inscriptions, there is a layer of technology unlike anything in our databases. It is still active after millions of years. What kind of technology? Doctor asked. What kind of transmission system? Said. As far as I can tell, it is designed to broadcast a signal across enormous distances. The inscriptions are not just a message. They are instructions for activating a device. Beacon said slowly. The seers left a beacon. According to the translation, this beacon was designed to transmit the seer message to every world they see it, every planet where their children evolved. They wanted their message to reach everyone, not just whoever happened to find. Rose from his seat, his armored form towered over the others in the chamber. This beacon will not be activated. I forbid it. On what grounds? Captain Vance demanded. The grounds that we do not know what it will do. It could be a weapon. It could summon some ancient horror that the seers themselves fled from. We know nothing about these so-called seers except what Dr. Cole claims they wrote on the walls. It speaks of unity and shared purpose, said. It speaks of hope for the future. There is nothing threatening in any hazard we have translated. Just can lie, growled. I am ordering this site sealed. No further research will be conducted until the council decides how to proceed. Master Ruth stood. She was the human diplomatic representative to the coalition, a gray-haired woman with a quiet voice and sharp eyes. Arbiter, I must register a formal objection on behalf of Earth. This discovery affects all species equally. You cannot spread it simply because it challenges your preferred understanding of galactic history. Ken and I will, replied. This session is concluded. Dr. Cole, you will surrender all translation data to Coalition security. This matter is now classified. Just stormed out of the chamber, his heavy footsteps echoing against the metal floor. She looked at, then at the display still showing the translated words of the ancient seers. Had uncovered the greatest truth in galactic history, and now powerful forces wanted to bury it forever. Cole had not come this far to let the truth die in darkness. The seers had waited millions of years for someone to find their message. She would not fail them now. Days that followed were tense and difficult. Stationed soldiers at every entrance to the inscription chamber. He demanded that surrender her scanner with all its data. He called for an emergency vote to expel humans from the coalition entirely. Sutter fought the expulsion with every diplomatic tool available to her. She reminded the council that humans had contributed significantly to coalition research. She pointed out that its discovery, whether they liked it or not, had advanced understanding of more in 3 weeks than the previous 3 years combined. It had powerful allies. Several species preferred the existing order where old civilizations held authority over younger ones. The idea that all species shared equal standing as children of the seers threatened hierarchies that had existed for thousands of years. Are afraid, said during a quiet meeting in quarters. They have always believed we were among the first intelligent species to evolve naturally, and consider themselves chosen by their gods to rule over lesser beings. The seer truth destroys these beliefs. They would rather hide the truth than accept it, said bitterly. Would your species do differently? Asked. Humans have your own beliefs about being special, about being chosen. How would your people react if they learned they were designed by ancient beings who seeded life across the galaxy? Considered the question. Some would struggle with it. Others would find comfort in knowing we are not alone. But I think most humans would want to know the truth, whatever it means for our beliefs. A sound that might have been agreeing. Perhaps that is why humans recognized the Cedar alphabet when we could not. You are young enough to still embrace new knowledge without fear. Older species become rigid in their thinking. We forget how to see with fresh eyes. I've with troubling news. Is bringing in a military transport. He's going to have the beacon destroyed. He says it is too dangerous to leave intact. Cold anger rises in her chest. He has no right. That beacon belongs to all of us. It was left for every species the Cedars created. It means little when you have the bigger guns, said. The transport will arrive in 18 hours. Whatever we are going to do, we need to do it fast. Looked at, can you get me back into the chamber? Hesitated. The guards are loyal to. If I am caught helping you, I will be expelled from the coalition. My career will be over. Understand, said. I'm not asking you to risk everything for my sake. This is a choice you must make for yourself. Silent for a long moment. Then he straightened his tall frame and folded all 4 arms across his chest. Sitters waited millions of years for someone to find their message, he said. I will not let that message die because one angry bureaucrat fears what it means. I will help you. Made their plan quickly. Captain Van agreed to position the horizon between the orbital station and the planet's surface. She could not fight the forces, but she could slow them down. Commander Leo Grant volunteered to create a distraction on the station while and her team reached the shuttle bay. This is probably treason, noted as they gathered their equipment. Probably agreed. Are you having second thoughts? Grant, not even one. Let us go wake up a million-year-old machine. From the station went smoothly at first. Leo triggered a false emergency alarm in the engineering section, drawing security teams away from the shuttle bay, and slipped through empty corridors and reached their shuttle without being seen. His voice echoed through the station speakers. Attention all personnel. Dr. Cole is attempting to leave the station without authorization. She is to be detained immediately. All shuttles are locked down by order of the High Arbiter. Fingers flew across the shuttle console. The lockdown is electronic. Give me 30 seconds. Watched the shuttle bay doors nervously. We may not have 30 seconds. Footsteps approaching. Heavy footsteps. Guards. She counted the seconds in her head as worked frantically to bypass the lockdown. At a shout, the shuttle engines roared to life. The bay doors began to open. It burst into the shuttle bay just as the shuttle lifted off. Energy blasts scorched the hull, but the small craft was already shooting through the opening doors and into space. Horizon is covering our approach, Captain Vant reported over the communication system. You have a clear path to the surface, but hurry. That military transport just dropped out of faster than light travel. You have made 2 hours before they reach the ruins. The shuttle plunged through the orange atmosphere of Prime. Watch the ancient ruins grow larger on the display screen. Somewhere down there, beneath the carved symbols of the cedar alphabet, a beacon waved to speak to a galaxy that had forgotten its own origin. Landed on the same platform where it had first arrived weeks ago. The ruins were empty now, all personnel evacuated on orders, and ran through the silent corridors toward the inscription chamber. The massive room was dark when they entered. Activated his scanner and began searching for the beacon controls hidden beneath the carved walls. He said, pointing to a section of floor near the center of the room. The power source is directly below us. There must be an access panel somewhere. A seam in the stone that was almost invisible to the eye. He pressed his hands against it and pushed. The panel slid aside, revealing a shaft that descended into darkness. Well, Go said, you just stay here and watch for soldiers. You do not know how to operate cedar technology, protested. Al grimly, neither do you, but I can read cedar writing. If there are instructions down there, I will find them. Lowered herself into the shaft and began to climb down. The darkness swallowed her completely. She descended for what felt like forever, her hands and feet finding holes carved into the smooth stone walls. She reached the bottom. Soft blue light pulsed from somewhere ahead, walked toward it and found herself in a small chamber filled with crystalline structures that hummed with ancient power. On the wall before her, written in the backwards alphabet she now knew as well as her own name, were the instructions she needed. The beacon was ready to speak. All it needed was someone to give it a voice. The instructions carved into the wall of the beacon chamber. The process was simple. The seers had designed their technology to be activated by anyone who could understand their message. They had wanted their children to find the moment, not struggle against it. Placed her hands on the central crystal as the instruction directed. The humming grew louder. Blue light pulsed faster, felt warmth spreading through her fingers up her arms into her chest. Above her she heard shouting, voice thence, then the heavy footsteps of soldier. Voice echoed down the shaft. They are here, brought his personal guard. We cannot hold them for long. Focused on the crystal beneath her hands. The inscriptions had mentioned 3 stages of activation. She had completed the first, 2 more remained. Fire erupted above. Heard cry out in pain. She forced herself to concentrate. The cedars had waited millions of years. She would not fail them because of fear. Second crystal lit up beneath her touch. The entire chamber vibrated with power. 1 more stage. Soldier appeared at the top of the shaft. He aimed his weapon down at it. She did not look up. Her hands moved to the final crystal. Soldier fired. The inner blast struck the wall beside, showering her with fragments of ancient stone. She pressed her hands against the 3rd crystal and spoke the activation phrase written on the wall. Children of the cedars, hear your parents' voice. Explode from the crystal. The entire chamber blazed with brilliant blue radiance. Felt herself lifted off her feet as energy surged through the beacon and out into the galaxy. At the surface, soldiers stumbled backward as the ground shook beneath them. The High Arbiter himself stood at the entrance to the inscription chamber, watching in horror as symbols on the walls began to glow with inner fire. The orbital station, crew members gasped as their displays flickered and changed. A message appeared on every screen, written in every language the seers had designed into their children. The military transport that had come to destroy the beacon. The commander stared at her console as the transmission reached her ship. Her hands trembled as she read words that challenged everything she had ever believed. The galaxy, on a million worlds that the seers had touched, the message arrived simultaneously. It did not travel through normal space. It moved through something deeper, something the seers had built into the fabric of reality itself. Every species they had created, every child they had seeded across the stars, received the same words at the same moment. Children, scattered across the void. We are the seers and we loved you before you existed. We designed you to think, to create, to wonder. We gave you the capacity for language so you could speak to each other across the darkness. We gave you curiosity so you would search for each other. We gave you compassion so you would recognize each other as family. Gone now, our time ended long ago, but you remain. You are our legacy, our hope, our purpose. You are different from each other in countless ways, but you share a common heart. You are all children of the same dream. Dark's coming, we saw it in our final days, a threat that will test all of you. Separately you will fall. Together you will prevail. That is why we designed you. That is why we seed you on so many worlds. One species cannot stand against what is coming, but a family of species united by the heritage you gave you can endure anything. Each other, trust each other. Remember that you are not alone. Remember that you were never alone. The symbols you use to speak are proof of your connection. The love you feel for your children is our love, passed down through millions of years. The hope you hold for the future is our hope, planted in your hearts before you were born. Are the seeders, and you are what we seeded. Grow well, children, grow strong, and remember us when you finally meet what waits in the dark. Message ended. Silence fell across the galaxy as billions of beings tried to absorb what they had just learned. In the beacon chamber beneath the ruins of Prime, Cole collapsed against the central crystal. She was exhausted, drained by the energy that had flowed through her, but she was alive, and the message had been sent. Hands lifted her from the floor. She looked up into the mirrored eyes of, that was bleeding from a wound on his shoulder, but he was smiling. Did it, he said. The entire galaxy heard the message. There is no hiding it now. Climb back up the shaft together. The inscription chamber was full of soldiers, but they stood motionless, their weapons lowered. They had received the message too. They knew what it meant. But among them, the massive High Arbiter looked small somehow, diminished by the truth he could no longer deny. He stared at with an expression she could not read. You have changed everything, he said violently. Nothing will be the same after this. Hope not, replied. I hope we can all start seeing each other as the family we always were. Silent for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. Perhaps that is what the Cedars wanted. Perhaps they were wiser than we are. Turned and walked out of the chamber. His soldiers followed. The ruins of Prime fell silent once more. Montlayer stood in the cold and chamber. The room was full. Representatives from every member species gathered to discuss the future. The arguments and divisions had not disappeared. They would take years to fully resolve, but something had changed. When species looked at each other now, they saw something familiar, something shared, something that could not be. Ambassador announced that Earth had proposed the construction of a new research facility at a place where all species could study the cedar heritage together. The motion passed unanimously. The meeting returned to her quarters and found a small package waiting for her. She opened it and found a children's alphabet book sent from Earth by her sister. A note was attached. You might want to remember where it all started, love. The book in her hands, she looked at the symbol letters printed on each page. S for apple, B is for ball, C is for cat. About the cedars, ancient beings who had designed these shapes and planted them in the minds of species that would not exist for millions of years. She thought about all the children across the galaxy who were learning these same basic symbols at this very moment. Human children, children, children. all of them connected by an inheritance they were only now beginning to understand. Her sitting by the viewport, the alphabet book open in her lap, he settled beside her and looked out at the stars. What happens now, he asked. Alden traced her finger over the backwards A that had started everything. We get to know our family, she said, all of them, and we get ready for whatever is coming from the dark. At the viewport, the stars burned bright and steady, and on a million worlds, children of the seers looked up at those same stars and wondered what they might find among them. Message had been delivered, the family reunion had begun.